Shannon, first of all, just your general reaction to what happened last Friday with the arrest.
Well, I think everybody was relieved. The family was relieved, and it's long from over. The next, that chapter's kind of closed at least, and then now the next chapter starts. The whole criminal justice process, and so I think everyone had a little bit of relief and was able maybe to sleep at night, and then now it's back to the grind again. So.
Did you have any inkling that something was coming?
No, we had no idea. They hadn't released any information, had no heads up about anything. I think I received a call it was about 10:30, I think, on Thursday night, and from the Moscow Police Department letting me know that they were in the process of taking someone into custody. They didn't release the name or any of that information to us that night. I immediately called the family and spoke with them. They were obviously, happy and relieved to a certain degree. And then I got more information, more details about who the defendant was in the case the next morning. So.
I know you're limited in what you can release at this time. Has law enforcement briefed you and the Goncalves family on what is going to be discussed in the probable cause affidavit?
No. I mean, they don't need to. I mean, they haven't reached out to us to set up a meeting or anything. I'm obviously a criminal defense attorney myself, and a former prosecutor. So I've explained to them how the process goes, and what the hearings might entail, and how that's going to be playing out, and how we'll just kind of take it day by day. Everyone thinks that I think that he's going to get back here and he's going to automatically be arraigned on the case, and that's just not what's going to happen. His first appearance will probably be getting an attorney. So get either a court-appointed attorney, or if someone if the family hires an attorney, a privately retained attorney, and then that attorney's going to want a couple of days to talk with his client, and then they'll have the preliminary hearing regarding the probable cause for the arrest, and then obviously the Latah County will have to get a grand jury. That's for the indictment, and he can be arraigned on an information prior to the indictment and be held on that, and then. So, I mean, there's a lot of moving process things that are going on that aren't going to happen immediately on the case. So.
But as far as whatever's in that affidavit, I would assume the family would want to know before the public.
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, we'd like to see it. They're not going to release it to us. I mean, I've asked for it right now, and they've not released it to us. They're stating Idaho state law that they can't release it until after the arraignment. And so we're honoring that. But I'm just as anxious, and the family is just as anxious to see the probable cause affidavit as everyone else is. Hopefully it's a good probable cause affidavit. It's not going to detail everything that's in part of the investigation, but it will give a good basis about what possible evidence they have that connects the defendant in this case to the crime. So. And then, maybe, they can ask. I mean, I think that the real thing is that, the community being involved and knowing and offering up additional details about any connections or anything like that. So.
Yeah, I would just hope they would get that information before it's released publicly. I understand state law and everything. I saw Steve, you and Steve, I think on an ABC News interview where Steve alluded to the fact that he and the family do not know this Bryan Kohberger, but they were seeing connections or possible connections.
Yeah, I can speak to that. I mean, basically that the interview, it maybe wasn't basically set out the way it should have been, but it was, now that we have a name and we have a person, all the families are going to be looking for connections between all of the victims. So, and if we find any connections between Kaylee or Maddie or Ethan or Xana or any of those, the victims in the case, we'll be relaying all of that information over to the Moscow Police Department. And we're going to allow the Moscow Police Department to determine if they release any information regarding those connections. And I think the Moscow Police Department is really asking from the public, now that there's a face and a name, that get as much information as you can to us about this guy, right? About his habits, things that he was doing, all that stuff, still asking for community help. So
at this point in time, Steve and Christy Goncalves and the rest of the family haven't seen it. They don't know that Kaylee knew this guy or any of the other girls or victims.
I don't have any information that they knew this guy. I mean, I don't think he wasn't on any of the family's radar. I don't believe. So.
Yeah, I don't think he was on anyone but law enforcement's radar. I mean, I think it was a shock to everyone. So, you know, wow. So I saw Steve just a short time ago. I think I saw both of you on CNN on the plane. So Steve obviously still, I mean, they're grieving. They're in a lot of pain. You can tell. How do you think he's doing, and the family?
Well, I mean, things have changed in some aspect of it, is that they have a person that they've arrested, but the loss of their daughter hasn't changed. The loss that she was murdered and all of those things, that hasn't changed at all. And now you have to have hope. You know, you had hope that they would get an arrest. Now you have to have hope that they're going to get a conviction, that they've done all the things that they needed to do, that they dotted their I's and crossed their T's, and they have evidence that will come in, and we'll get a good hard evidence on this individual, and any additional evidence that they can, circumstantial evidence that they can find that will add to the weight of the direct evidence and the hard evidence on the case. I mean, so they're hopeful that will happen, but it's still a long journey. I mean, we're nowhere near the end. So.
Sure, most certainly. Have you been given any indication as to when they may bring him back, whether they bring him back possibly late tomorrow night or Wednesday or something to that effect?
They haven't given us any information. I've emailed them about that information, if they could give me some specifics as far as timelines, things like that, and I haven't received any response about specific timelines on just that they don't have any information. I would suppose that if he waives extradition tomorrow, I think the hearing's supposed to be earlier than the 3:30. I think it's supposed to be an 11:30 hearing. And so I would assume that they might have someone out there that might be able to get custody of him immediately after the hearing. And then I would assume that they're going to be flying him back. I can't imagine that someone would be driving. So flying him back, and, he could arrive in Idaho within 8 to 10 hours, probably of that range. And then, the next day, possibly make a court appearance to get an attorney on the case. And then, it kind of starts the process, and that attorney may ask for some time about some different things and for a timeline. So we'll have a better idea once he's back here, but I don't know when that's going to happen.
But you believe the hearing has been moved from 3:30 Eastern to 11:30 Eastern?
Yeah, that's what I've heard. So
really? Okay.
I can't confirm that, though. So okay, that's what I've heard.
Okay, I'll have to look that up. And I know that, just tell me if you would, the family, Steve and Kaylee Goncalves, and obviously the rest of the family's plans for when this suspect appears in court, the defendant. I'm assuming they will want to be present for that, and would likely try to be present for as many of these hearings as they could be.
Yeah, I mean, I think they'll be involved as they possibly can in this. They still have jobs, right? They still have things they have to do to make a living, and I'll be there as much as I can, and the family will be there as much as they can. And sometimes it'll probably be Steve and Christy. Sometimes it might be Steve or just Christy, or maybe just me, or other family members that might have some availability to come down. But I'm pretty sure there will be a representative of the family at every proceeding moving forward. So.
Do you feel like things have improved as far as the communication goes with the Moscow police and the family?
Well, I mean, I don't know if anything's really, that's not really what we're focused on right now. I mean, what we're focused on now is moving forward and hoping that they have done a proper investigation for a conviction. And so that's the key. Obviously, giving us a phone call immediately when the person was being taken into custody was the right thing to do. And so we're hoping that we'll continue to get more information ahead of time moving forward. That's our hope. So,
is there anything else you'd like to add?
It's a long journey here. We've got a lot of stuff moving forward, and I would just encourage anybody that's out there that's to continue with the leads and the tips to the Moscow Police Department to, to help them gather, additional circumstantial evidence that might be able to help in the investigation and those types of things. And because I feel like it was the community that helped solve this crime. It was a community involvement. I mean, it was, the guy was from Pullman, right? He was nine miles away and just over the border. And so, I don't know the details of it, but I'd be fairly certain and confident that it was the community that helped solve this crime and helped with the leads and the tips in the investigation.